A bipartisan rebuke to the president today. The Senate today voted 59-41 to terminate the president's national emergency declaration to build a border wall. That's a hell of a throw for him. 59 against him. 12 Republicans voted with the Democrats. Let's watch.
The use of national emergency powers to circumvent Congress's explicit decision on funding is unprecedented.
This declaration is a dangerous precedent.
It's a question about the balance of power that is core to our Constitution.
We must stand up and defend Congress's institutional powers as the framers intended that we would.
Well, minutes after the vote, the president tweeted the word veto. He followed up later today, writing, "I look forward to vetoing the just-passed Democrat-inspired," notice how they use the word Democrat, not Democratic, "inspired resolution which would open borders while increasing crime, drugs, and traffic in our country. I thank all the strong Republicans who voted to support border security and our desperately needed wall." Well, a two-thirds vote in both the House and the Senate is needed to override the veto. I'm joined now by Phil Rucker, White House bureau chief of the Washington Post, and Charlie Sykes, editor-in-chief of the Bulwark. Thank you both. I'll go to Charlie first on this. The Republican, it was like in the spring when you start seeing grass growing up in the cracks in the cement, you start seeing little sprouts coming through the cement. Now, I don't think Trump likes to see those sprouts, but there they were today, 12 Republican sprouts, including the 3 people with some brains in that caucus. Including, I have to say, Toomey as well, the ones that seem to be principled. They jumped out and said, no, this is the wrong way to go. Too much power for a president.
Yeah, this was a very strong rebuke. And yeah, there's a very strong rebuke of the president. And 12 senators breaking with the president is certainly a beginning of something. But it could have been bigger, and it should have been bigger. I think there are a lot of senators who understood this was an easy vote. This was a red line vote. And yet they chose to cave in. They chose to go along with the White House rather than the Constitution.
Tillis. I mean, why did Tom Tillis break?
Very disappointing. Tom Tillis is afraid of a primary. You have Ben Sasse, who's up for re-election. You have Ted Cruz, who now can no longer be taken seriously as a constitutional conservative. You have I think you have a lot of other Republican senators who really held their nose, and I think are going to pay a price in terms of their reputation for going against what they had said. I mean, a lot of these guys are on the record, on tape, denouncing Obama's use of executive authority, and their hypocrisy was really on display. And also, quite frankly, their spinelessness was on display as well.
Well said. Let's take a look at Ted Cruz and how he views executive authority differently than when the Democrats in the White House. Let's watch.
We, the Senate, are waiting in our duty to stop this lawless administration.
Well, today he said in a statement against the resolution that current law empowers the president to declare a national emergency. And he's not the only one seeing things differently, Cruz isn't. Differently now that they did back in 2014 when President Obama took executive action on immigration. Let's watch the difference.
If President Obama acts in defiance of the people and imposes his will on the country, Congress will act. The Senate should not be in the business of misusing specific resolutions to express opinions on more general matters.
This president, if he doesn't get his way, says, I got a pen, I got a phone, I'm going to go it alone. Well, that's a disaster waiting to occur.
Congress has granted the president the authority to do exactly what he's doing.
What he did is a dangerous precedent, and if he has the power to do that, what could a Republican do regarding laws they don't like? I think the president's on solid legal footing, and his veto will be sustained.
Well, it seems to me there were 3 Republicans there that showed some principle today. That was Romney, of course, and Portman and Alexander. Those are the things I think of as principled people. And you throw in Pat Toomey, but how many hacks do we got in the Senate on the Republican side now that were willing to just bow to this guy?
Well, the senators who voted with Trump today are afraid of Trump. That's why they voted that way, Ted Cruz included. And it came after a week of pretty intensive lobbying on the part of the White House to try to get enough Republicans in line. Vice President Pence was meeting with senators. President Trump was personally calling lawmakers over the weekend and this week. It was a very top priority for Trump because this was his signature campaign issue, and he felt a vote with the Democrats here would be a betrayal by his own party.
When you talk, Charlie, when you talk around, do you sense that this is I think it was a Steve Allen song, this is the start of something big? I mean, could this be something starting big in terms of a mutiny, or is it a one-off, today's vote?
Well, I think it's a crack. I think your analogy of the grass growing up in the sidewalk is probably better. But this is the second vote. I mean, think about it. He's going to issue 2 vetoes because this Republican Senate also rebuked him on the war in Yemen. So you're starting to see a little bit of independence. Also, you know, I mean, yeah, these guys are afraid of primaries, particularly people like Thom Tillis. But there are going to be people on the ballot next year who I think are going to regret this as well. And so I think on some of these issues, you're starting to see a little bit of independence. And, you know, again, I'm glad the 12 senators voted against this emergency declaration. But still, when you think about it, there's not a single conservative Republican in that Senate who does not know in their heart that they, you know, that this is wrong, that they've crossed a red line here, that they put the politics and their loyalty to Trump over their Constitution and their oath of office.
Phil, this is a strangely Napoleonic kind of Republican leader. I mean, it's not a leader like Reagan, who shared an ideology with so many Republicans, anti-communism, less government, less taxes. And they seem to share that in their souls. They really were the same party. This is one boss telling everybody every day how he wants it done that day, and you obey. And this time we see 12 people not obeying. And I guess the question is, again, back to this, are we seeing that fear unraveling?
Well, they're obeying because President Trump still commands such extraordinarily high support within the Republican base. Republican voters overwhelmingly support Trump. We see that in poll after poll after poll. And there's not a clean ideology. It's not like he's enacting a party agenda. He's enacting a Trump agenda with the Trump ideology that changes from issue to issue to issue. And these senators are just trying to hang on and preserve their own political lives. But one thing that's important about this unraveling that you're talking about is it wasn't just the senators we would have expected to betray Trump today, Romney, Collins, Murkowski, but you saw Rob Portman of Ohio, Marco Rubio of Florida, Roy Blunt of Missouri. These are pretty kind of middle-of-the-road Republicans who ordinarily have been voting with the president.
And they look like survivors to me. In fact, they look like people that are going to survive Trump. Anyway, thank you, Phil Rucker. Thank you, Charlie Sykes, as always.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.